Well, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Hello, Emin. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with me tonight for this conversation. I am Debapriya Dutt. I am Director Project Southeast Asia of Earthly.org. As you are well aware about our organization, and this year is extra special for us because we are commemorating our 55th anniversary on 22nd April, which is celebrated world over as Earth Day.
My name is Emin Israfil. I'm the founder and CEO of Rubbish. And our goal is to create clean, healthy, and sustainable neighborhoods for everybody. We've been at it since 2017. And it's, an honor to be part of this Earth Day broadcast here with you.
So I'll begin by talking about some of our campaigns that we've been leading from here, Southeast Asia, one being the Great Global Cleanup and the other being the Safe to Beach Cleanup. So waste production is really rising at an alarming rate, and the Global South is unfortunately at the forefront of this crisis. And by 2050, waste generation in this region is expected to grow from 2 to almost 2.5 times, overwhelming existing infrastructure and worsening environmental and health issues. So, in India alone, the annual waste generation is projected to rise from 169 million tons to about 436 million tons. And similar trends are seen in China and Brazil as well. So that's where we are at, where waste generation is concerned, and the most pressing waste issues that we face here primarily stem from plastic pollution, as we have seen, and lack of efficient waste management systems, and I would say unchecked consumerism as well. Beaches, rivers, urban spaces are all drowning in single-use plastics, which in turn is endangering marine life and contaminating water resources. So it's like a chain, right? I mean, one thing affects the other, and this reminds me of a famous quote where by Mahatma Gandhi, where he says that the world has enough for everyone's need, but not really enough for everyone's greed. So I think that should be an inspiration for us to shift from a linear take, make, waste model to a circular economy model. That's the way forward, how I see it and from where we experience it. So, with your experience of 8 years in the segment of waste management, can you tell us a little bit about how the waste issues have changed over the years worldwide and the current challenges that we are facing?
The changes over the last 8 years have been huge, both from a technology perspective, local awareness, and consumer preferences, similar to what you're alluding to, and local laws. So all three are, I think, changing in a positive direction. And just to start with, like local awareness and local preferences, or maybe worldwide, people are more and more aware of the kind of increasingly unsustainable way that we handle our waste, and kind of the greater need for systems that can be reusable or at least more sustainable. That, like, if I use a piece of plastic or silverware, a plastic utensil once, that's not going to remain in the environment for 1,000 years. So people are more aware of the kind of environmental impacts of like very minor convenience are requesting change. So I think that is great. And the other part, and the other kind of, so that's good that consumer sentiment is shifting in that way. We also see it from as a company point of view, where every year more and more interns from like great universities are coming out and reaching out to us, saying that they want to work on these kind of climate initiatives, sustainability initiatives, these kind of jobs and efforts that are really focused on improving the world for all of us. And the other pillar that's changing, that I've seen change a lot, is the laws and regulation. I live here in California, and we just passed a huge law called SB 54. That's basically meant to tackle plastic waste and pollution. And they're shifting increasing amount of the waste management burden from government and the people onto the producer. So we're actually playing a role in that and helping to quantify the amount of waste, plastic waste in our waste streams and in our environment to be able to hold the producers accountable and bring some of that cost to the producer level. So these are at a larger scale called EPR laws, or extended producer responsibility laws. And not only in California, they're passing in other states, but around the world as well. And basically what they kind of fix these imbalances where producers see no downside to the waste streams that they create. Other examples of that include like marine flares and explosives, where it costs maybe $30 to produce a marine flare, but $150 or something to dispose of it properly. So those laws are kind of catching up, and they're kind of creating more of an incentive for us to use more sustainable materials. And lastly, the technology is changing, and that's important because technology allows us to communicate these kind of the educational aspect and what the better materials are. But technology is also helping us, like I mentioned before, track the amount of waste in our environment in the form of litter and environmental data, but also our waste stream. So a lot of what we do is create the software systems for waste characterization. So we can measure the amount of the type, brand, and type of litter that's in our streets and our forests, but also what's entering our waste stream. So that's one of the new things that we've really been focusing on lately. Can you maybe share a little bit more about some of the key challenges you faced in communities in the South and Southeast Asia?
Sure. So I think one of the main challenges that we face, which is really big here, is behavioral change. Many communities still, unfortunately, look at waste as somebody else's problem, and therefore that leads to rampant littering and open dumping, etc. So infrastructural gaps, especially in the waste collection and recycling, further, of course, aggravates this issue as well. The other challenge, I would say, is the economic reality as well, in this region, because there are many informal waste pickers who depend on waste for their livelihood, but they often work in unsafe conditions with very little recognition. So, there must be some policies to ensure that these workers are integrated in the formal waste economy. So that's one of the ways in which this can change as well. And additionally, of course, plastic pollution is very deeply embedded in the supply chains, making it really hard to curb at the consumer level. So, all of this seems like it's impossible till it's done, as Mandela once said. So we really need to continue working with governments, businesses, and communities to create a system where waste management is accessible. And I would like to say that it is almost mandatory. I think we are at a stage where it's not even optional. So once we realize that this has to be mandatory and waste segregation is a part of our day-to-day living, then things can really improve, and it will help us tackle this problem of waste pollution so much better than what we are doing currently. So, I believe Rubbish was founded as a tool to track what you pick up during cleanups, but it has been completely revolutionized over the years. Can you talk about the evolution of your model and how it can help solve waste issues?
Yeah, so you're right. We did start by doing, it all started when we were walking our dog in the neighborhood where we grew up, and it was a little corgi about this big, it was still a puppy, and he found the biggest, grossest chicken bone you could imagine, and started eating it and cooking on it. He ended up being fine. He was like, where can I get more chicken? But it got us talking about the state of the community and the states of our street, and we were inspired to do something about that. So we started with literally knocking on doors and asking people pay us $20 a month and we'll clean up the streets for businesses and residents. We did that for a while, and we developed an app to be able to show like, hey, we're actually on the street. This is the change in litter. And we want to map out like, hey, our efforts are actually making an impact. And we actually did that. We proved that within a month of cleaning, you saw the amount of ambient litter in the neighborhood go down steadily and consistently. It's not like it would return as soon as we cleaned up. But that was a really hard business model. Stores, people would move, stores would go out of business, and those will be, $30 to $40 a month that they were paying. So we decided maybe our superpower is in software. So we just focused on creating software for the people who are out there doing this work anyway. So we started working with the local cities and the community benefit districts were our first clients. And there we really focused on litter and environmental data. And we did a lot of work there. But over the last 2 years, especially with AI and a lot of the new tools that have become available, a lot of the cities that we worked with and the clients were asking like, hey, like you're identifying waste and litter and these things on the street. Well, how about before they hit the street in the large 40-yard containers or in the garbage, or provide educational materials to people? Can your app do that? So we were like, maybe. And then we kind of did a couple of pilot programs, and we found that it was working well. So we decided to kind of take a more holistic approach, from just litter to what can we do to help make the whole waste management stream easier and more efficient.
So, I mean, how do we make sure that innovation isn't just for well-funded cities, but it's scalable for communities with fewer resources?
So, yeah, technology is important. Building an app is cool. Everyone wants to build an app, but like just because you build an app doesn't mean anyone's going to use it and that's going to be usable to anybody. So that technology is an important tool, and it's meant to make our lives easier. But the other half is what you described. It's the putting the systems in place and getting the community, both whether it represents businesses, government, or just the local people on board. So kind of the systems and the process is just as important as the technology. And the technology should be as transparent as possible. It should just make that process and those people's jobs easier. I think one of the core beliefs that we have is you can't improve what you don't measure. And it sounds like, that's similar to what you're describing. And, I grew up in Brooklyn and the Bronx. And I always thought that those boroughs should be as clean and beautiful and well-maintained as, Manhattan. Like Throgs Neck and East Tremont in the Bronx should be as clean as Madison Avenue in Manhattan. So a lot of what we have done, especially in our beginning stages, was to work with these underfunded communities and not super well-funded areas. And that's kind of where we were able to bring a lot of the most in Soma West in San Francisco. It's one of those who know it is one of the more, especially at the time in 2019, one of the more polluted and dirtier parts of San Francisco. So much so that they developed a special community benefit district to help put in extra funds to clean it. So what they did beforehand, before they deployed these funds, we got together with the community and we used our app to, like you said, log every single piece of litter, every single piece of graffiti, the weeds that need to be picked, and all these community issues, 22 in total, different categories that the community thought was important and wanted to see improved. And then we walked all 100 blocks to map it out. And we ended up getting something like 20,000 individual data points. So you couldn't do that with pen and paper. You had to have an efficient way to record that information. So they used our app, and it was like done in a week, where they created this report card for the city. Then they implemented the services. They knew where to put the garbage cans. They knew what the city wanted to focus on. They knew where the biggest problems were. And they were able to deploy that money efficiently. Then a year later, with the same Soma West Community Benefit District, we repeated that same survey. So we covered all 100 blocks again, and we still counted every single piece of litter, every cigarette butt, every piece of graffiti, sticker, everything that they want to see fixed. And we saw a massive change, and we helped them both in installing infrastructure where it's needed, but also just communicate. I want to say, San Francisco, so the amount of needles that went down was like close to 80%. These things like, dog poop and other things went down similarly high, but like huge gains, like a massively cleaner city was created. So data helped target those resources, those infrastructure resources and the labor where it was needed, but it also helped keep that community accountable, create this report card and communicate to the local residents, like we're doing a good job, like we spent all this money, but we've seen these big gains. What are some of the things that you wish leaders and politicians understood about what you're doing, and what policy change needs to happen or you would like to see go through the most?
Right. So I think what would really help if world leaders recognize that all of the cleanup efforts are not just to clean up a space, and it's not about collecting trash, but it's way beyond that. It is really about changing mindsets and, most importantly, policies that in the first place allow the pollution to persist. So the root of the waste crisis really lies in unchecked production and lack of regulations. So we would really love for policies to focus on phasing out single-use plastics and promoting sustainable alternatives. The other thing I think would really help is strengthening waste segregation and recycling infrastructure. That's again for the government to implement and make sure. Supporting informal waste workers or waste pickers who are very critical to the circular economy model. And I would have to say that ensuring that corporate accountability in waste production, bringing me back to the conversation that we had a little while back about EPRs, because governments really must act now with firm regulations and incentives to support sustainable industries. So that's what I would hope and wish for, from the government.
I think it's just around the corner.
Yes.
What do you have planned for that time of year, for that week or a day or maybe all month?
So Earth Day is every day, really, but of course, 22nd April is special for us, and this year we are celebrating 55th anniversary, so it is extra special for us. And the theme, as I mentioned earlier, is Our Power, Our Planet. So we are having large-scale cleanup drives. We are also organizing a lot of events where we are inviting corporates, mayors, and the government to take a pledge to reduce their energy consumption by at least 20% or shift to LED and renewables. That's one of the things we are focusing on. The other thing that is very critical for us is for the NDCs to mandate climate education. So we are looking at ways in which governments can really start mandating climate education, because till the time people have enough information and knowledge about what's going on, change is not possible. Because there are umpteen possibilities of things that can be done, and we really need to shift our focus on everything that is possible for us to do, and to be a part of the solution instead of really feeling terribly depressed and hopeless about where we are at. Because if you look at the news every day, literally, it only focuses on how things are going from bad to worse with the climate change, with rising temperatures, etc. And our message is really, if you were to ask me, our message is very, very simple. We just want to say that every action counts. Whether it's saying no to plastic bags, whether it is joining a cleanup drive or pushing for stronger environmental policies, your efforts really matter. Whether you are advocating for climate education, whether you are taking a pledge to reduce your energy consumption by at least 10%, every action counts, and every drop in the ocean will actually make a huge difference in the larger scheme of things. Do you have any plans to mark Earth Day this year? And what would you like to tell the viewers about your message?
Yeah. Yeah, in the end, I'm an optimist, and to be almost a stereotypical San Franciscan, I think innovation and new ways of thinking about these problems and technology will kind of help us solve any of the problems that we got ourselves into, whether it's too much plastic or too much paint with nothing to do with or whatever. That we could find solutions to that, and so I'm optimistic about our ability to kind of we start with inefficient systems. First, we start with no waste management, and then we start with simple waste management. And then over time, we realize we could be doing better. So like any other thing progresses, our techniques for dealing with these universal problems are getting more sophisticated with time. And that's just the natural progression of how humans deal with problems. So I think the trend that on the big enough scale is positive. There's also SF Climate Week that week. So we're going to get together other entrepreneurs that are working in the sustainability space, the material space, and circularity space to talk about the innovations that they have, and just make sure everyone knows about like all this cool new technology, including AI, which is the hot buzzword now, that are being applied to all these challenges. And I think that's April. I should look that up, 25th or something like that. So we've got a lot of busy April.
So thank you so much, Emin, for sparing your time. And it was so lovely having this conversation with you. And we look forward to doing a lot of good for the common heritage, our first home that we are privileged to call the Earth, our planet.
Thank you. It was great chatting with you today. Hopefully see you in Mumbai sometime soon.
Yeah.